Well, I've collected stamps since I was a kid. And then you don't get many stamps from what you make on a paper route. But maybe you guys have all been there and done that. I got interested in collecting again when I went to the Philippines in 1978. And I amassed a pretty good Philippine collection. I also learned a little bit more about World War II during my time there in the Philippines. It was hard to get Filipinos to talk about it. I guess that's maybe true of any serviceman after the war. During World War II, mail was delivered by Pony Express in the upper right-hand corner, by air in the upper left-hand corner, by truck in the lower left-hand corner, by ship in the middle, and I snuck a Philippine stamp in just for good luck, by foot, mail delivery. You can advance that. Today, we've been impacted by the computer, and everybody has email. That's replaced a lot of mail for the post office. Go ahead. Some of you have Gmail. That's pretty much what I use. That's Google's platform for mail. There's lots of other mail programs. That little one in the upper left corner is actually Opera Mail. Go ahead. And then, of course, Microsoft's been the giant and the leader with their Hotmail. Some of you have Hotmail. My wife's Hotmail is always full because she's a quilter. Myself, I prefer to be on the Macintosh program, but that's been a big impact on communication as well. And then the smartphone over on the right. We live and die by our smartphones. I haven't found one that I'm smart enough to use yet. Go ahead, Paul. First class mail during the World War II era was 3 cents. And the theme in a lot of the stamps was victory. Here you see a cachet that has that victory stamp on it. 1942. Go ahead. If you wanted to send it by airmail rate was 6 cents. And then you see the 3 stamps that are, again, the Statue of Liberty, a cannon, and that Victory Eagle. Remember Pearl Harbor. I was born on December 7th, only in 1944. But if my last name is Hauber, and my mother always kidded and said, if George was born a girl, we would have named him Pearl. Wow. Pearl Hauber. Now, I don't tell that to too many people, but I'm thankful I was born a boy, and I'm thankful for where I live now at Landis Homes. Okay, Paul. I only learned about V-mail about a year or so ago. V-mail was used during the war for the servicemen. And I got the next cachet that you'll see on the next slide in one of the packets of things that I acquired. One of those boxes that had stuff in it. Go ahead, Paul. It was a cachet that had a Philippine stamp on it when the U.S. occupied the Philippines. And as we were getting towards the end of the war, this was a cachet for D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day in 1945, October 20th. It did not contain anything, but it was unusual in that it had a stamp and a postmark on it from Tacloban Post Office in Leyte in the Philippines. Go ahead. The ellipsis and the dash, if you know Morse code, stand for the letter V. So the artist, the graphic artist, incorporated that into the V ... dash mail sign. And of course that stood for victory. The little 2-cent stamp on there is worth about 2 cents, if that, but it's part of a whole set. The instructions are on the back of the email, vmail, and they provided expeditious dispatch and reduced the weight of mail to and from personnel of our armed forces outside of the continental United States. And what you were to do was read the instructions. I'm not sure many men did, but probably some did. You were to write your message on the other side within the margins. You were to print the name and address in the 2 panels. Addresses to members of the armed forces were to include rank or rating of the addresses, unit which attached an APO or naval address. Fold it up, seal it, no enclosures. Says number 4. And email letters may be sent free of postage by members of the armed forces and their families. Go ahead, Paul. I really learned about it when I got a collection of these World War II sheets that the post office came out with. Our post office is prolific in producing stamps for all different kinds of events, places, and people. This is got number 2765. It's a block of 10, and it's the third in a series of 5. It's worth about $2.90 because there's 10 stamps there. It's hard to get much more for it, although some people are asking more online. Paul, hit it again. The stamp that's pictured in the upper right corner is the one stamp in the U.S. Postal Service that talks about VMail, delivering letters from home. The date on there is 1943. Okay, that piqued my interest. So I got the book that the U.S. Postal Service put out called Remembering World War II. It's a series of 5. Paul, I have your slip jacket and set of 5.
Let's see what's happening. Oh, I'm in now. Okay. Write a letter. Okay, I see this.
So you could fill in that space that you see where it's handwritten. You see an envelope folded up. They produce special ink, and that's out of that book. I gave them credit for it. I'm not going to sell this PowerPoint presentation, so I think I could use it even if I didn't give credit. Go ahead, Paul. They made special ink, and guys are still selling this online. You can buy some VMail ink that was fine and suitable for reproduction of the microfilm that was used to make these copies. They didn't have ballpoint pens, and pencil often got sloppy. So it was really best to write your letter in with good, black, crisp, sharp ink, script or quink, a little bit of a play. Go ahead. The microfilm that was used is also hard to obtain today. Microfilm has gone by the wayside, but you see some letters on the right. You see some rolls of film in a package from the government, and that was used to make this, as I'll explain in the next slide. Go ahead, Paul. Now, original copies are really hard to find because the copy that you wrote was delivered to the post office. They took it and photocopied it on microfilm, and they destroyed the original. But the idea was that VMail was to deter espionage by foiling the use of invisible ink, microdots, and microprinting. It amazes me when you see a James Bond movie and somebody, whether it's Bond or one of the others, has a little camera about the size of your hand, and he's taking pictures of huge documents to get the secrets from the enemy. Well, this was to provide protection against that because they could not be reproduced. Okay. It's hard to find a picture of a microfilm machine and explain what it does. I found one. You can see it's got some postmarking on it or some credit on it. I can't read what it says, but it is proprietary. You can copy anything you want off of the internet. You just have to be careful what you do with it. Okay, Paul. Now, this cartoon, I give credit to Wikipedia, the all-knowing, ever-answering Google search engine that finds you anything you want to know and lots of things you don't even care about. But it had a nice write-up on Vmail itself and some nice graphics. The next slide is going to show you the idea of this cartoon. They could take, and click it one more time, Paul. They could take 20 pounds of original letters written in Vmail envelopes, and they could package them from the post office, sort them, open them, sort them, identify them with numbers, get them ready to be photographed, and then the letters are fed through this microfilm recorder. Next slide. They were sorted, and they were copied onto a 5-ounce roll of film. And they took it into the darkroom. That's those guys that you see the eyes showing up. A couple of my friends and I went to the Mount Rushmore. And when we got on up the top of Mount Rushmore, the fog set in. They sell postcards there at Mount Rushmore with a gray background with 4 sets of eyes. Well, there's only 3 there, but that's, I digress. Down in the lower left corner, 20 pounds of mail were compressed onto 5 ounces of microfilm. They got it ready to ship, and typically they would take it by plane, although I'm sure some of it went on ships, but it saved the weight on the planes for armaments and vital war materials. The source you see is the Bureau of Naval Personnel. So I have no idea how to get in touch with them. I just copied this. Next slide. They would take the microfilm, take it into the darkroom, develop it, process it, make prints from it, wash them, dry them, and you see that 1,700 letters were received on one 5-ounce roll of film. And then they're ready to be, next slide, they're ready to be delivered. And there's the postman bringing them back home to the family to hear about what their son's up to. Interesting cartoon. It pretty much explains the process. Next slide. I have a small collection. I was up at Bob Wikowski's last week. Bob's got a box full. I mean, he's got a big box full. I didn't have the time or the energy to look at that, but another day I'm going to go up and look through it. You can buy unused sheets. You can see how they're folded up to make an envelope, how they open up and provide a space for you to write. Next slide. The letter sheet is designed so you can put the address in of who it's to and who it's from. You can write or type, and I found out if you type, you could get 700 typed words in. We only had about 2 sizes of typeface back in that time period. If you wrote by hand and wrote small, you could get more. You see a little bit of handwriting on that particular one. These are few and far between of originals. Remember, they get destroyed after they've been photocopied. Next slide. If you didn't want to write, which is probably true of a lot of men, you could buy pre-printed greetings. I got this off of the Smithsonian National Postal Museum website. They're nice reproductions or nice illustrations of some of the pre-printed things that men could buy, send, or families could buy and send to their son or daughter, wherever they were overseas. You'll notice in the pictures, there's a house and some flowers on the left, and then there's a ship and a tank. And then up above the flowers on the left, very left, near hello, there's a set of 3 airplanes. So they carried out the military theme with 2 more airplanes down flying over the tank and a little bit of handwriting. That's probably what suited most of the men in the military. The V-mail on the right has a ski guy coming down the slope, another guy sitting under a tropical palm tree, and then down at the bottom, another military tank, airplane, guns, and ships. So the military theme was carried throughout these pre-printed ones, and it didn't take much to send one off. Now we can go, Paul. If you could read the writing on the one on the left, most of the handwritten letters were, "Dear Duke, well, it's been a long time since I've written to you, old boy, but now that you're in the Philippines, I figure we're practically neighbors." Now, if you'll notice, the addresses are New York, where it's being sent from, and San Francisco, an FPO box. Sometimes guys would make illustrations like the photocopy that you see on the right. And you'll know that it's a photocopy because it's much smaller than the original. And it's always black and white and has some crappy edges like you see at the top. Okay. Now, up in the top where the address is, there was a censor stamp. So we, a couple meetings ago, heard about censor stamps in Europe. Well, our mail was censored too. Sometimes it was censored like the illustration that you see in the photocopy on the right. I didn't cross out the ones down the bottom, but it was a little.
See where to get the volume up.
I'm sorry. Someone had a question?
Does somebody have a question? No? Go ahead.
Okay. So mostly what was censored was what battle they were in or what location they were in, and things that would be sensitive to the military would not have been sent in photocopy. Go ahead. The return mail came in different color envelopes, and there's guys who collect the years. I have a 44, a 43, and a 45. You'll notice that they have an oval window, and that's where that folded address would show through. They also had square or square with rounded corner envelopes, and again, lots of different colors. From the War and Navy departments, the V-mail service center, official business. You couldn't use this if you weren't military. Next slide. I have a postcard, and I thought, well, how do they use postcards? Well, they don't photocopy them. They just sent postcards. They handed them out. You wrote your information on the back, put your address on the left-hand side there. And if you look closely, the V on the left has United States Army. The V on the right has United States Navy. They're sharp-looking postcards. Next. Now, if you go on eBay or any of the other auction sites, there's lots of choices of material for a collection. I've only begun, I don't have very much, I think you could spend a good bit of money if you really wanted to, because you can see some of the prices on that screenshot I took, from blank V-mails to finished photocopies that would be returned home. Very, very few original copies. Next slide. You can see this batch of envelopes and photocopies. And I think there's a check in there. The seller is asking $124.95 plus $6.95 shipping. Well, you don't have to buy it if you don't want to pay the price. Next one. Some of the information that I illustrated here came from the Smithsonian site. And if you've never been there, it's got a good comprehensive cataloging and illustrating of US postage. And it has a nice little section on V-mail. I think that's it.
Yep.
Any questions?
Yeah, I'm just amazed how well this stuff has survived. I mean, it's older than most of it, you know? Yeah. That hasn't crumbled, or you think war production things being done quickly, it'd be dried out, acid paper and all that, but
You can buy brand new V-mail envelope sheets online. They came in a tablet, I think, of 18. I don't know what they cost, but it would be kind of irrelevant unless you were there at the time and had to pay $1 for 18 letter sheets or envelopes.
yeah.
But those originals, if they were used, have been destroyed for the most part.
Yeah, what I heard is after they had the receipt that they made them bet that the microfilm made it across the ocean home or to the war front, then they would destroy them. If they didn't make it, you know, they were worrying about getting sunk or shot down. If they didn't make it, they would redo it again. So they kept
And
them.
then I think most of the microfilm was destroyed.
Oh, now, yeah.
Later.
Yep. They didn't need to hang it around, you know.
No.
Now, how many pieces do you have?
I only have about 20 or so.
Yeah. You mentioned Bob Wikowski, and I have several from him that I got. I think they're a couple dollars each.
I'm going to spend an afternoon with him sometime in the weeks to come
Mhm.
on a cooler day. And
Yeah.
we'll go through the email box.
Exactly. Okay, folks, anybody have any questions? Comments? Any of you guys collect, guys and gals, have email in your collections? Bob Noble, you have to have something.
It's fun to read some of the letters.
Yeah, yeah.
And the things that the guys conveyed back home. And
Mhm.
the things they wrote to their wives and or girlfriends.
Actually, I have Bob Witkowski's email. Anyway,
You have the whole tub that he has.
yep. If that was not the entire tub was V-mail, but some of it was. I do have some. I don't remember how much.
Well, he said he has a nice box full.
Okay, then I don't have it.
Now,
I have a question.
yeah,
Sure.
go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
As me, Dave.
Oh, Dave, okay.
Yeah. You said the mail was censored. Was it censored in both directions? So a letter going overseas to a serviceman was censored, or was it just the return mail that was censored?
I think it was both
Directions.
both directions. They didn't want the guys in the field telling what they were doing and where they were. And
Sure.
So they would censor that type of thing out. If it was something from the States asking, I don't think they would. I don't know how they censored it. I don't know what their guidelines were. It would be a good study, but I didn't find any information on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me, I do not have any at the Vmail. I
All right.
went to look. So he still got that.
There's still time, Bob.
Well, I have to.
I have some World War One.
Paul, I would think it would be very rare to find something coming from the States that was censored.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
And I think too, because the service members, it was hard for them to carry around a lot of this stuff. You know, many of them was just the backpack.
Yeah, they would wait for roll call though. You had been at summer camp. There's nothing like getting a letter from home.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
And that was the main goal. And it didn't cost the family or the person in the military any
Okay.
postage at all.
So the family could send it overseas for free.
Right.
Okay, great.
You could deliver it to almost any post office mailbox, and it would get funneled to the military part that would cancel it and then send it to the proper unit or whatever. I think it was actually both in Europe and in the Asian peninsula as well.
Okay, very good.
Paul, I think it costs 3 cents or 6 cents to send from America to the serviceman, but it was free to send for the serviceman to send home.
Okay. So you're saying that the
It
family,
wasn't
It
free
was
to
free
send
for
to
the
your,
family.
it wasn't free for the family to send. It was free
Yes,
for
I
the
think it was.
serviceman to send.
well, that'll go on our list for further research.
Yeah.
I'll be done.
Okay, other questions for George on Vmail?